Hello everyone, welcome back to Lights On, Still Scared. My name is Graeme Milne and I'm with my esteemed colleague
Karen Swanston.
And today, something slightly different. Today we've got a guest speaking to us today and his name is...
John Tantalon.
Now, John Tantalon and I have known each other for a number of years and we're part of a collective called PSI. We're an investigative group, but we sporadically investigate. We don't do it every weekend. We've got other things to do in our lives, but we know each other pretty well. John is a fantastic storyteller and has written several books and does many great things in the paranormal field. So he's probably well known to a lot of people. So we're very glad to have him here this afternoon. So welcome, John. And how you been?
Not bad. Been busy as ever, and of course enjoying this wonderful rare sunshine, this heat for Edinburgh. Yes. But we've been good, not bad.
Yes, I must point out, guys, the weather is very hot today.
It's extremely hot. However, we'll point out that it'll be hotter down south than up here.
It's always the case. So yeah, John, we've known each other for a number of years, and obviously born and bred in Edinburgh, and you formed, what would you describe, North Edinburgh Nightmares. Was it a would you describe it as a podcast thing, a filmmaking thing?
Well, North Edinburgh Nightmares was originally a book. It was a book of lesser known stories from the north of the city. My grandfather was a trawlerman down there, and I grew up in the area. Yeah. And over the years have culminated quite a lot of interesting stories. So the first book was putting them to paper, getting them out, and we had the idea of putting together like a not a podcast, but a series of sort of videos on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And we ended up doing 30 by the end. Mm-hmm. And they were covering some of the stories from there. Then we ventured out. We ended up doing some about Portobello, about South Queensferry, did a section on Leith, and different themes. We had one all about the haunted pubs. That was called Wines, Ales and Restless Spirits. Yes. We did one about the theatres and cinemas of the city. That was called Terror in the Back Row, I think. We did that, and basically when we started doing our ghost walks full time, mm-hmm. we just ran out of time to film every month.
Yeah.
So 30 was the kind of number we reached.
It's a big ask, I'm sure, and I mean they look great, but I can imagine consuming time be a bit of a nightmare, as it were. Yeah. But isn't Edinburgh the perfect place for ghost stories, don't you think?
It certainly is. I mean, I think that if all the ghosts come out, there won't be enough room for us living.
That's very true. That's very true. We're actually sitting here in a place called Niddry Street, which is reckoned one of the most haunted streets in Scotland. In fact, next door's a pub called the Banshee Labyrinth, which we've all been involved in the Banshee Labyrinth at various points. Yes, drinking and working obviously, but drinking mainly, I might add. But it's an interesting place. So, John, if you don't mind, can I ask you? We've just been doing a little section on castles and palaces of Scotland, haunted castles. I know you've got a fantastic ghost story concerning a castle, personal experience from Craigcrook Castle.
Yes,
right?
Indeed.
Would you mind telling us about that?
Certainly. A lot of people will say to me over the years, that come on the walks and, have had me on shows and stuff. They say, God, you're doing this a long time. You must have seen loads of ghosts. Must have had loads of paranormal encounters. I says, frankly, no. Says, I couldn't really say until 2014. There was a friend of mine worked for a security company, and he was offered a bit of overtime one weekend looking after a building that they had called Craigcrook Castle. Now, it's up at Blackhall. Mm-hmm. It's, a wonderful, I can't remember how many years. I always go with 500, but it's an old castle. And it was up for sale, and it was going to be purchased for £6 million by the actor Gerard Butler. So this was a big deal to them. They says, we can't have anyone breaking in, anything going wrong with us. Mm-hmm. So we need somebody there for the full shift. He says, yeah, no worries. Now, Peter had, kind of been a bouncer in the Cowgate and stuff. He was from Warsaw, and, he kind of knew his stuff. And he says, yeah, no worries, we'll do that. So he went in on his own. He was the only one with the key for the place. And all he had to do was every hour walk around the castle
Mm-hmm.
And, you could just sit downstairs and watch his laptop or whatever. But incidentally, there was no power in the building. It was just like the wee bothy downstairs where they had a generator. And he went round, walked about the place. This is amazing, a castle to myself. Came down, poured himself a cup of tea and closed the drawer in front of him. Went round an hour later, another part of this wonderful castle. Sat down, says, time for a sandwich, shut the drawer, opened his laptop. 6 times he went round doing the walk round and he thought, who's opening the drawer?
Mm-hmm.
Says, every time I come back, he says, there's no one here. I'm the only one with a key and something's opening the drawer. So the shift passed and he said to me, so you're into sort of stuff like that. What do you make of all this? And he said, if I get the keys again, do you want to look at this place? I says, yeah, that'd be great. So it was the spring of 2014 and he collected me from work after a shift about 11 o'clock at night. We went in, took some pictures. It was wonderful. There was no spooky vibe or anything. It was just really cool to see. Went round the castle and about 3 o'clock we went home. Sometime later, he got in touch in the autumn. He said, we're handing the keys back. It's fell through. Gerard Butler's not buying it anymore. Right. Says, do you want to see it one last time? I says, oh, yeah. So I was on night shift. I jumped in my car about 2, 3 in the morning or something and went over. And in my break, incidentally, I wasn't skiving. Mm-hmm. And went up the path, past the wee gatehouse, went in and Peter said, do you want to have a cup of tea or do you want to do the walk round first? He said, no, we'll do the walk round. It'd be nice to see the place. So we went up to the first floor, walked along with our torches, nothing at all, up to the second floor. And the next thing that happened, folks, was a door opened entirely by itself slowly. And I said to Peter, don't panic, that could be a floorboard or anything. Obviously it's 3 in the morning, you're, in a bit of a spooky place with no lights. We're walking along the second floor. Next thing, there's a big brass doorknob falls off directly in front of me, just like that. Woof. And at that exact point, behind Peter, a door slammed with all its might. And there was a big bouquet went past the two of us, like a scent. And at that point, we ran for our life. And I called being downstairs. Peter's got the kettle. He's scrabbling about. He says, leave that. I'm not staying another minute. You can ram your tea. And he said, I'm coming with you. I'm not staying here on my own. Yeah. So that was it. I mean, we did a bit of digging. It turns out it's famously haunted by a guy called Lord Francis Jeffrey. He owned it.
That's right. The hanging judge.
Yeah, that's right. And there was a company hired the outhouses in the 80s. They were either publishers or they were like a paper manufacturer, something like that. And they had lots of recorded events of things getting thrown at them and the likes. As far as I know, it's still unoccupied. I mean, somebody's taken over the outhouses as a care home. Yeah. But I don't think anyone's in the castle itself.
Ah, that's wild, because I actually saw I saw it online recently, and I was looking enviously at the rooms, thinking, that'd be great. Wouldn't that be great? But yeah, with the paper firm or whatever it was, there was, if I remember, it was folk getting like paper clips thrown at them and stuff, but like physically hurt by something. Interesting story, though. But isn't it funny? We all have spent so many months, years of our lives trying to find, some sort of truth or find evidence, and how sporadic it is. It's you never get too much. You get the wee crumb now and then, but it keeps you going, doesn't it? It keeps you going. That's a really interesting story.
It was a game changer.
I feel quite envious, actually. Ghost envy, is there such a thing?
Have you not had any? You've had loads of stuff.
Had a few things, a few bits and pieces of consider to be a bit more unusual. But the thing is, when you get something like that happen, you kind of want more. It's quite addictive. I think, I mean, it'd be fair. John, remember, me and John got the opportunity to look in the basement of, what was it, the Royal Oak pub. Yes. We're doing a talk, and we were down there basically because it was the back door, in case something happened, we'd get... So we were letting sort of shuffle about there. Really interesting, because it was part of the, the Southbridge Tunnel vault system. But remember when you went away to get the torch, and I had that freak out experience. It was quite funny. And here's me, who's really interested in these things. But John had gone to get a torch just around the corner or something, and I was in this big, it was bloody huge tunnel. And honestly, God, I swear there was a guy came right behind this black figure, and I nearly had a I nearly had a heart attack, shall we say. I was going to see something else, but it was one of those moments. And then I thought afterwards, I'm ashamed of myself. Why wasn't I cool and collected? But I usually don't get freaked out, but that was one time I was definitely... Have you ever felt like that?
Freaked out?
Or about anything that's been like, hey...
The only time where I've actually thought, this is really freaking, I really didn't like it, was that time at Usher Hall. When I was at a concert. It was Erasure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Nothing to do with Anthem, I'm assuming.
No, and I think I have mentioned this one before, where I was in the toilets because it's halfway through the concert, so it's completely empty. There was no one around, and I was washing my hands, and they've got those brass door handles.
Yeah.
And it started to move. And it's felt like someone was trying to get in, but they couldn't. And the more I was ignoring it, the more it was trying to jingle. So I thought, for God's sake, as you do. As I grabbed it, it was still moving. And when I opened it, there was no one there. Now, that made me feel a little bit freaked out. And I was at the Usher Hall on Sunday, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to the ladies on my own. So I'll just stay through the concert and watch it all the way through without leaving my seat.
Haunted toilets, man, they're a nightmare.
I know.
The Usher Hall is it's surprised I've never heard a story from the Usher Hall, but right next door to it, the Lyceum has an interesting story. It's reputedly haunted by Dame Helen Terry.
Yeah.
Who, she was all over the place back in the day. She was... But they reckon the reason she's fed up with this place is they had like an effigy of her when you went in. They had all these kind of statues. What do you call it?
Oh, the plaster cast. Yeah.
And during World War II, there was a shortage of chalk, so they smashed hers. But the head remained, it just rolled around for years. So they reckon because of that undignified ending, she's not very happy. And she still hangs about the Lyceum.
Perhaps she peeks through the walls and goes to the Usher Hall. But why she want to spook me halfway through an Erasure concert, I don't know.
I didn't even know she liked Erasure. I thought she was a Depeche Mode fan or something. I don't know.
Perhaps that's the reason why she haunted, because she didn't like Erasure. But there you go. It was quite a few years ago now. So
that would be funny.
Yeah.
But it's well when these things happen. I mean, we kind of live in hope. What would you think, John? If somebody's to say to you, like, what would be the best piece of evidence for you? Would it be a photograph, a personal experience, or what do you think? Just as someone who's really interested in this whole subject.
I'd probably, hands down, say the carry on at that Craigsoot Castle was by far the most genuine. Yeah, we've had other things where we've done investigations. We were at that one you're talking about with the Royal Oak, which is, it is like it's part of the vaults. It's vast. They're not interested in using it for anything. It's just storage for. Yeah. But we were down there and we picked up a voice in the monitor, and it was Bill. It was a very clear Bill. Mm-hmm. And when we were speaking to the manager, we told her our findings. She says, all I can think of is there was a chap used to drink here called Bill. I'm not going to say his name. There's a picture, a painting of him in the bar. Mm-hmm. And he died very suddenly on his way there. Had a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And where we picked up the name, we were standing right next to his double bass that he never collected because he passed. And I thought that was quite a full-on one.
That was interesting, actually.
We also did one at Inch House, didn't we?
Yes.
And we picked up an audio of a guy. It was a very clear American voice. And it said, "Good night, baby."
That's correct. That was a really obvious. And a lot of these recordings tend to be a bit kind of ambiguous, but there's a definite clear. Yeah. We were like kind of wow, But that's true. Yeah. And what was the connection? Was it not used by soldiers or something? The castle?
We looked into that, and we weren't sure if it was occupied with GIs during World War II. Yeah. It was one of those things I was going to look further into it, but we went on to the next project.
We did. There's always something else. Inch House is a fantastic building. Oh, yeah. And part of it was ruined, which was even more. I thought the ruined bit was wild. Yeah. We got in there. We just sort of look around, but it was weirdly mixture of Victorian, what looked like sort of more modern parts, but it was very, very creepy. Yeah. And there was this the bit that, what I'm going to see here, there was this huge pile of paper on the floor that had been chewed up by mice. So it was like a humongous pile of chewed up paper. If you can imagine like a gerbil chewing all paper up in a cage, bit big, but 4 foot wide and very tall. And we were marvelling. We think, God, look at this. This is insane. It was like a sculpture. And right in the middle of it all was a tiny ripped piece of paper, slightly bigger than the rest, that had Benedict Cumberbatch's face on it. And I thought, that is far out. That's just really wild. I thought that was I don't know how that came about. But anyway, I'm going off track here. That was pretty cool.
It's allowed, but that was a good one. And Kerry claimed that something pushed her when she was standing next to that bizarre gate with steps going nowhere. Yeah. And she did. She swore out loud, didn't she? And says, what was that? Someone grabbed her or pushed her.
There's a kind of undercroft, what you call it, like a vault that's ancient, and there's a tiny stone staircase that leads up. It's a very old part of the building. And apparently when it was a school, if you went up the steps, there was a hatch and you could push it and you turn it. Was a headmaster's room or something?
That's right, yeah.
Very peculiar layout. So I don't know who on earth would have gone up these steps, but very, very rustic to say the least. It was interesting. So, John, have you got a wee story for us? Can I ask you to give us a wee ghost story tonight? A wee favourite of yours? Have you got anything you'd like to?
Yes, certainly. Well, we do sort of ghost walks all around the city. We do one down in Wardie Bay, where I'm from. We do one in Leith, one in Porty, do one at Cramond. And of course, we do one in the Old Town too. Mm-hmm. But one of my favourites for Leith, I'm sure you'll appreciate if you're from Leith.
Lived in Leith for a few years,
yeah. There's in the docks, it's very changed now. They've got the trams down there, they've got new buildings and stuff. And I was waiting on a ghost walk coming, and I thought, I never realised how close we were to a building. Mm-hmm. And there was a fellow, he was a painter and decorator, told me this story. And he was working overtime in the docks in a place called Bradero Shaw House. Now, Bradero Shaw was the company in the 1980s that would import the massive, iron pipes to Scandinavia. I mean, it was a big, kind of job for everyone then. Mm-hmm. And they says, we come in and give the place a lick of paint, just whenever you want, come in after your work. He says, I no worries. So it was at midnight on a Friday night, and he's in there on his own. He's painting away. And he hears the security guard come by. Here's a door, and he says, that'll be the security guard. He says, great, I'll get a cup of tea. He says, I'll be down there now, pal, 2 seconds. Can you hear him walking around the building? Mm-hmm. And he's coming up the stairs, and he says, he's not far away. And he went back down the stairs. He says, what a cheek. He's not even said hello. And he went down, and the door had physically opened. He went outside for a look, and he said, where's he went? And there was nothing. There was no sound of a car. There was no smell of exhaust fumes. There was no sound of footsteps. There was just the seagulls flying around. He thought, where on earth did he go? So the next morning, speaking to his wife, because that was the strangest thing, with the security guard popped in, never said a word, and he vanished before my eyes. And his wife said, she says, I know who you mean. That's a security guard. That's not the security guard. She said, I've been cleaning in there before. Right. And we've all seen him. He died in 1985. She said his name. I'm not going to repeat his name, because not because he's like the candy man he's going to appear, but it's just quite an odd name. Yeah. And she says that it's like his eyes watching you. Me and the girls have been in cleaning, and he's been like in the corner just keeping an eye on us. Says he was the security guard there in 1985. Right. And he was one of the highest paid guys in the docks, because he did all the overtime going. He never had much of a life. He just liked to go and see Hibs. Lived with his old mum and drank whiskey. But he had a temper and a half, this character. Yeah. It was on one occasion, somebody was winding him up about Hibs getting beat for a change. And he picked up a still saw and ripped it right down the front of the guy's overalls. He says, next time it'll be your face. He says, didn't be wide. And that was the sort of mentality this guy had when he was alive. God knows what he'd be like in death. And he's still doing his patrols around there now.
That's creepy. Because we were talking about how, earlier on, we're talking about palaces and castles, and how various ghosts, like, executed queens, Anne Boleyn and all this kind of stuff, has been seen in so many buildings because of a traumatic experience. But likewise, I suppose, if somebody's had attached to a building because maybe that's all they've got, or they're, and so they feel obliged to just, if they're here in spirit, I mean, there might just be recording, but I find that really interesting.
Yeah.
But imagine being chained to your work forevermore.
I know.
Oh,
God help us, you know.
God.
You know.
I feel like I am sometimes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. I think that's why everybody should have a hobby. At least you just keep your options open.
I mean, where I used to work in my Muggle life, I worked in a solicitor's, and apparently one few years back, one of the typists died at her desk, and apparently she haunted the office. I mean, I can't think of anything worse typing for the rest of your eternity.
Phantom tapping.
I know.
Talking about, like, you know, you can't get away from your work. I was speaking to a chap one time, and he had a wee story for me, and he's a bus driver. And he said that, you know, they were cycling down the railway path down at Trinity, him and his wife and daughter, and this sort of older man walked past them and just vanished through the railway bridge, just walked clear through the wall, and they nearly fell off the bike. And I say, that's a cracker, Davey. But he says, oh, that's nothing. He says, what about this? There's a guy I work with. He's been on the buses for a long time, and he's always off on the sick because he's psychic.
Oh.
And he can see the spirits on the bus. And he says it stresses him out so much. Now imagine that going to a tribunal, you know, proving that.
I know, exactly.
But he says it all started in the 80s, and he was on a bus at Clarmiston, and there was a couple of an Arami upstairs, and he looked through the periscope to tell them off, and he just saw a face looking at him. And that's when it started. He's seen them time and time again, people sitting on the bus. And it turns out it's actually quite common. There was a story from Manchester back in the day, and, you know, the people saw a guy, you know, getting hit by a bus when there was no bus there.
Yeah.
And it turns out somebody got a Dear John letter back in World War II, and he was hit by a tram.
Right.
And they've changed the road layout a bit, but it's the same bit where the tram would have been. And also, after the terrible tragedy, the tsunami over in Phuket, Thailand, there was multiple reports of taxi drivers picking up fares and taking them to the airport, Americans. When they got there, there were nobody there. They were trying to get home after dying in the tsunami. So there's quite a lot of that, people, you know, picking up passengers. But the bus one was pretty spooky, you know.
I think it's one outside the Kinghorn Hotel as well in Fife, which is kind of similar. But it's sort of sporadic. I mean, I know in the 1950s there's a few reports, in the 70s mainly. In recent times, I'm not so sure, but certainly one of the customers back about 1970 came into the bar really petrified. They'd been waiting at a bus for the bus to come along. It was quite a dark night, so when they're standing there, you know, there's no street lights or nothing really, just the hotel, and they can see, you know, the car's quite beams full on, it's quite bright in their eyes, and he feels somebody behind him, and he kind of looks to the side, and there's a woman just like literally beside him, but really close, you know, like kind of Invasion of Space close. He was a bit kind of, and she was described as wearing, you know, a sort of gabardine type coat kind of thing and all this. And he was willing to make small talk because he felt, this is weird. The woman's like here, and I've got to say something like, you know, good evening or something. He turned around, she'd gone, and turns out the same woman had been seen by a few bus drivers getting on the bus, sometimes at the opposite side of the road. And typically, like the stories are, when the person's gone in and somebody went upstairs to collect the fare because they were the only person on the bus, nobody. But the Clippy and the person driving saw this happen. So I don't know, there's a weird thing about transport and ghosts, is there?
Yeah, it certainly is. There's one in the new book, shameless plug.
No, yes, John, because I was going to ask you that. What is the title of your new book?
It's Lothian Region Terror Tales.
Right.
And basically what we did with this book was put a compass in the middle of Edinburgh. It says, wherever we get in this, you know, circle, we're going to find stories about it. Yeah. And we did. And one of them was a lady got in touch with me, you know, I think she was maybe coming on a ghost walk, or she'd been on one. And then she was talking about Cramond. We do, you know, walk down there. And she says, you might think I'm daft, but what do you think of this one? She says, back in the 80s, my then fiance, 84 it was, now my husband, and I were on his motorbike going past Lauriston Castle. And they're going down the long road down to the bottom. And you turn, there's like a big white gate. It's a mushroom farm now or something. Right. And they turned there, and he says he stopped. He slowed down because there was a woman crossing the road. Now, this will show your age if you get this one. She looked like the woman off the Scottish Widows advert.
Oh, aye.
Long, dark cloak, strolling across, floating across the road.
Yeah.
But there's nothing there, and she just vanished into it. And they continued, And they got down to Cramond Village, into the Cramond Inn. And she said to her husband, what did you think that was? He went, did you see it as well?
Yeah.
He says, my God, he says, that was spooky. But he wasn't going to say a word. But she saw it too. And she says, I feel getting that off my chest was necessary, you know, because I've never talked about it in such a long time. But
do you know the Scottish Widows, right? This is fun fact, folks. Scottish Widows, the cape used in the Scottish Widows advert is in the Museum on the Mound, which is the Museum of Banking.
Yes.
Which was it Roger Moore's daughter?
Really?
I think she was the Scottish Widow.
Yes.
At one point. I think it was her. Anyway.
She's hanging about Cramond now.
Good. What about, so I was going to ask John, the book. Where can we get the book? As a matter of interest.
The book is available from a nice shop in Leith called The Portal. You can get it online on Amazon or from Sabre Press, which is our own wee company. We release books on, and that's on our North Edinburgh Nightmares website. There's a few places, a few other shops sell it, as well as Scottish Storytelling Centre and the likes. But it's been good. It's been well received so far. And it's got a bit of everything. I mean, so we did a lot of people's recollections that have been on Ghost Walks that have told us stories, own personal ones. We did that, and there's some really interesting ones on there. There's a chapter all about, you know, the East and West Lothian, over in the East Nook of Fife, you know, down towards Peebles and the borders. So there's a bit of everything, and we came across some really interesting stories. Some good ones.
Oh, I was going to ask actually. John stayed in a haunted hotel very recently called the Cross Keys. Is that
Cross
right?
Keys?
Met a very famous haunted hotel.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that.
In Peebles.
What part? I forgot the. You know those great ghost investigators from the 70s. They did Amityville. The Americans,
Lorraine and
Warren. Yes, that's right. God, mental block there. They actually apparently visited Scotland and wrote about the Cross Keys. And said it was a gateway to hell. They said,
really?
They said it was one of the most spooky places ever.
Wow.
I've spoken to a few folk that have worked there. Stories abound, but not. I wouldn't say as much as they were making it. And you stayed there.
Yeah, I stayed in the very room.
You came out alive at the other end. So
absolutely.
What
the one thing that did happen, I mean, there was, wasn't even planned. I went down just to take some pictures of a place called the Needpath Tavern.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I was looking up other sort of famous places, and I was Cross Keys. I'll pop in for a pint. And I was speaking to the guy, and I said, I don't suppose this certain rooms have I can't remember what number it was. He says, of course it is. There's no one staying here. It's February.
I wonder why.
He says, you can have it. He says, why are you asking about that room, son? I say, I know, I'll tell you all about it. So I was the only one in the building.
Trends.
And chatted at the bar to the guy till bedtime and went up. But when I went into the room for the first time, and I noticed, corner of my eye, there was like a bag with a hairdryer swinging on its own. There was no window open. There was nothing happening. And I think I got it on film and talked it through as I found it. But that was about the oddest thing. Nothing happened through the night. There was nothing I was expecting.
Yeah.
But it was good, it was good. It was good for the book. Catching some stories from previous
100%,
people,
yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of stories there connected to, what they assume to be the previous owner. So it's not as if it hasn't got a pedigree being haunted. I mean,
absolutely.
Typically, I suppose a lot of these things get exaggerated at certain points. And so, there's maybe a huge expectation. But yeah, some solid stories from there.
It was
I mean, I would have probably been a bit nervous staying there, to be honest. I would have given a reputation.
It was a little bit. I mean, as the night went on, I was chatting away to the guy and, I had something to eat. And then as I thought, there really is no one else here.
Yeah.
Where's he going? There must be somebody on overnight, but it's basically me and this guy, and that's it.
He's probably locked in a vault somewhere. Crucifix and garlic. Yeah, it's wild. I know, it's fantastic. But I do like the idea of an investigation. And I mean, we've all got our lists of potential places. Can I ask, Karen, which is there a building in this vicinity or even anywhere in Scotland that you've had a desire to sort of check out that you've not done yet, would you say?
I think there's loads of places, actually, that I would like to investigate. You put me on the spot now, Graeme.
And I'm sorry about that.
Put me on the spot. Trying to think now. A festival theatre, I think, would probably be an interesting to investigate.
Yes. I think that would
considering the history that's got.
Yes. That is
I mean, there is
definite.
definitely a vibe there.
Yes. Have you felt that when you've been in,
I have, yeah, well, I
as,
was-
as a patron of the theatre?
I was, yes, I was in the front row as well. I thought, well, I don't think I like that stage.
Cribbins. It wasn't Erasure playing, was it?
It wasn't Erasure.
Thank the gods.
What was it? It was some obscure play that had Lisa Goddard in.
Oh,
What's it called? It was called The Croft.
The Croft. I know the one, yeah.
Yeah, and
Was it any good?
I could not make head or tail of it. I really couldn't. I thought,
It
what?
looked like a spooky one.
It
Poster,
looked
yeah.
like a spooky one, but I got out of there thinking, what went on? I don't understand it.
you've got I think, if you've got a story from the Lyceum,
Yeah.
Because John, I think you know
Oh,
some.
from the festival.
Yes, Festival Theatre, sorry.
Yeah,
Festival Theatre.
I did a day's work there in 1994. That was it, a day. I thought, this isn't for me. So I gave it to my mate instead. And he's been there ever since. And he took me a tour recently. Got some good pictures for the book and stuff. Now, our friend Gordon from the Fortean Society wrote a book on the story of the Great Lafayette. And I'm sure you're aware of,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, the tragedy that befell, that very sad story. And at the end of the interview with Gordon, he goes, "Oh, there's no ghosts." I said, "Really?" So that's what we're here to talk about. He said, "Oh no, it's, as far as I know, it's just a very sad story." So I'm speaking to my pal Mark, the works, and he says, "Oh, no. There have been loads of sightings of things in the festival theatre. Used to be the Empire back in the 80s. And he says, there's been a guy with a wooden leg sighted. There's been, a shadowy figure, possibly Lafayette. But there has been, spooky goings on in the festival theatre. And it's cool when you get backstage. It's really, because, I mean, it's a fairly, it's been rebuilt in 94, but a lot of the original features from when it was the festival, well, not the festival, the Empire back then, But my favourite theatre story, we've got loads about Edinburgh. Favourite one's the Playhouse. You
Oh, yeah.
know the Playhouse?
I know the Playhouse.
Yeah.
I'm at the choir.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
So again, got another friend. We're all sort of old punks and metalers and stuff. We end up doing jobs like that,
Yeah.
And my friend used to be in the band Exploited, and he's worked there for many years in the Playhouse.
Right.
And he was telling me all about the story of Albert.
Yeah.
He even thinks he got a picture of it during lockdown.
Right.
But in the 60s, there was a break-in, and there's a police station right across the road. And the policeman came over, set the alarm, turned it off, and he said, "I'll do the walk round, make sure the place is secure." And he went all round with, like a staff member, checked it out, and he says, "Right, there's nobody here. If anyone's tried to come in, they're gone. So don't worry about it. The place is secure. I'll pop over tomorrow with paperwork. We'll get that to you just to say thumbs up. Nobody in there now." And he did. He came over in the afternoon and he said, "There's your paperwork. Just corresponds what I said." He says, "So a big thank you to Albert for showing me around." And there's nobody here called Albert, pal. Says, "There was some years ago, but he died." Some years later, in 97, they were having it was like a get together of like all the big politicians and stuff. And they were using the Playhouse because it's a sizable theatre. And the IRA were still at large, and there was still kind of bomb threats and stuff. They thought, got the Prime Minister and all these big wigs, we can't take any chances. So they got like the sniffer dogs in to check the whole theatre over. And there was one section they would not go near. The dogs were terrified. It's a section where Albert's seen. So what they did was instead they got the dogs from the castle to come in and check it out. And they went round no bother.
Yeah.
And he says, "Why are those dogs any different?" He says, "They're used to ghosts."
Yeah.
I thought that was a great wee story.
That's wild, is it?
But aye.
Yeah.
The theatre, I think one of the, I can't remember his job actually, this guy I was chatting to a few years ago, he used to take his dog in there sometimes just, for company. And I think his dog, it was a Springer Spaniel, I think used to freak out at certain points as well because of picking up on whatever was there.
Yeah, I mean, I think perhaps I saw him a few months back because there's a corridor by Albert's bar And I just thought, oh, there's something vibey going off, felt the vibe.
Yeah.
I peeked my head round and there was a woman coming up and then there was a man in like grey overall things. He had like slick back hair walking in the opposite direction.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't acknowledge him at all. And I thought, oh, are you one of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, the old spooky
Yeah.
And I said to the girl that was working there, and I said, is he seen back there? Or I said, is there anything spooky? And she said, oh, no, he's on the 6th floor.
Right.
And I'm thinking, no, he's not on the 6th floor. He's all over the place.
Yeah.
So I thought,
Yeah.
So, yes, a bit spooky.
That'd be a good place to visit and do investigation.
Absolutely.
I mean, a lot of staff have said that they've seen the figure and followed this figure, and when the figure's gone into certain areas, the lights have gone out as if it sucked the energy out, and then when they've walked on, it's flicked back to life, which was something I heard, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
But whether we can get permission to do these things, it's very...
I really don't know.
It's very difficult.
I could, have a little word.
Maybe you could. Wouldn't that be great? I'd love that. Have you got a particular place, John, that you'd like to do in Scotland? It's been one that's kind of stuck in your mind.
Scotland, I don't know. There's so many
I know, it's
interesting places,
500
castles and stuff like that. We did have an interesting wee story a few years back. We were going round your neck of the woods, Aberdeen.
Oh yeah.
And we were visiting lots of castles. We went to that wonderful one near Stonehaven. Is it Dunnottar?
Yeah, Dunnottar, yes.
Went up to Auchindoun, which is, the famous folk song, The Burning of Auchindoun, with treachery and murder and betrayal. We were over at Fyvie, which is legendary. And the last one, my partner Josh, she's a folk singer. She says, we'll go over to Huntly. She says, it's not really much there, but we'll give it a try. It's a ruin. So we went over there, and it just was Royston Vasey written all over it. It just got weirder by the minute. And, it's hard to describe. But we went into this place and there was one family from Baden-Württemberg in Germany we got chatting to. And, they went away. So we had a whole castle to ourselves once again. And Joss couldn't help herself. She's singing away. We'd read a wee bit about the background of the family that owned it, the Gordons, how they'd been persecuted for following Catholicism when you weren't meant to, when, Big John Knox was kicking about, etc. And they continued to worship, and they were beheaded for it. So she's going around, she's singing in the wonderful, sound of, what's the term?
Oh, the acoustics. Yeah, it's a great
ruin. No roof on it.
That's right.
And she's singing for a good 10 minutes. And she finished off with something in Latin. She was singing this song. And at the end, she said, it was silent, no one there. Lovely sunny day. He says, I hope you liked that, and gave a sort of curtsy. And I'm not going to do it because we're on here, but there was an almighty clap from above. Yeah, and we thought, what could that have been? It was all like a seal of approval.
Yeah, that's wild.
And it sent a shiver down the spine that day. Yeah. But we were recently up at Slains Castle.
Oh, yeah.
And that would be a good one to hang around for an investigation, It really just reeks. And it's Dracula Day today, I believe.
Oh, is it?
So there you go.
Happy Dracula Day.
Happy Dracula.
Slains Castle was the inspiration for Bram Stoker. He'd go to Cruden Bay on his holidays. And he was so inspired by Slains Castle that, he considered that to be Dracula's castle. He'd sit in the Kilmarnock Arms and write his book.
I used to stay in Cruden Bay.
Did you?
I wouldn't recommend it.
No.
Kilmarnock Arms is all right.
All right.
But I know that we were in a very modern bit to back. It was not very pleasant, I have to say. But the bit you're talking about was very nice. And the castle's very good.
Amazing.
But what's sad is when you look at the photographs of that beautiful castle, and some farmer loon took out the slates and lead, in about 1920 to save on the tax, and ruined what was probably one of the greatest Scottish houses ever. Fantastic looking building. And I don't know if there's much photographs of its interior. I don't think I've ever seen any of it actually look like what a place that would have been.
It was
right
really
on that
impressive.
edge of that cliff.
It's the way when you're walking up the hill, and it just comes into view like that, That was pretty special, I thought. So I'd love to do a wee investigation.
There's a few ghosts being seen there, but unfortunately the reports are pretty, they're not giving much away, because it's literally like it's meant to be haunted. Ghosts of Second World War soldiers, potentially servants, but not really meaty kind of real experiences. So to get something like that would be fantastic because it's a bit of an unknown quantity.
And we've also got our own homegrown sort of haunted houses. I'd love to visit some of them, but it'd be quite hard. Down in Granton, where I grew up, there's all these big stately homes. I think there's 5 of them. You've got Craig Crook up the road. You've got Muirhouse Mansion. You've got what was the other one? You've got one up at Drylaw. But the big story as a kid was Caroline Park House.
Yes.
Now, Caroline Park House is next to Edinburgh College. It's beside where Morrison's is now at Granton, and Waterside Front.
Right.
But back in the day, it was nothing. It was Texaco. It was an oil company that kind of moved onto the grounds, and this big mansion. My mum, who was 87 when she passed, she grew up in the area, and she always said the story was of the Green Lady, Lady Caroline Royston. And she said that, she was seen coming out the well and crossing the grass on certain times of the night and stuff. And it was a real local ghost story.
Yeah.
There's accounts of people, there was someone sitting in the living room and a cannonball came through the window and rolled across, and there was no broken glass or anything. Yeah. But I struck gold when I got an interview with a lady called Sharon Wood. Now, Sharon lived there in 1976.
Right.
Her mum was the caretaker. And she says, God, the ghost stories about that place are phenomenal. I think it's now flat split into flats or something.
Okay, yeah.
But it is, it's iconic. She said that she was staying there. And, again, there was nothing there. There was no Edinburgh College. That was a very remote part of town. And her sister was up the town. Her mum was out. She was in babysitting. And there's like a courtyard. And she could see a light on. She thought, oh my God, somebody's broken in. We're getting burgled. And she could see like moving from room to room. And she just locked the doors, got the kid in and says, I'll sit this out. But she could hear banging, all this carry on. There was somebody upstairs throwing stuff around. She could hear all this carry on. And she thought, we'll just deal with it when the people leave. And eventually her mum returned home and she says, we've been burgled. Upstairs was an architect's office. And says, we'll see it on Monday when he opens up. It's not going to be pleasant. And it came Monday morning and the guy came and says, prepare yourself, Ian. There's been a break-in.
Right, okay.
There wasn't a thing out of place. There wasn't a fingerprint. There was nothing. The dust there. She heard it and she swears blind. There was absolute chaos up there. The place getting ransacked. Another occasion when she was playing with her pal in the loft and there was like a dumb waiter came up on its own. And that was quite spooky. There was no one else in the house. So there's plenty of ghost stories about that place, the Green Lady.
That's interesting. God, I wonder, I'd love to, I'm going to have to check it out, especially if it's flats.
The caretakers won't help you at all. They're hilarious.
They're not.
What was it she said to me? She says, it's not a ghostly matter, dear boy. It's a nautical one. You're hearing the wind from the fort.
A nautical one. It was very nautical of you to say that, I must say. Garden Bennett. Yeah, some people have no sense of humour when it comes to ghosts, I have to say. No, they don't. I actually once tried to get in touch with a community centre that's meant to be haunted, not realising that it'd been taken over a committee that was led by a minister. And when I emailed him, I got a very rude email back. He wasn't very Christian in his response. How dare you talk about ghosts? Don't you know there are children in this building?
We once went to Wells Cathedral in Somerset, which is iconic. It was famously, it was in one of the Ghost Story for Christmas episodes. And I said, I've got to see, I can't remember, was it Stalls of Barchester or one of these ones?
Right, yeah.
And I went and I said to the canon, I said, good, donations welcome. And I said, here's 20 quid for you, mate. He says, good. I says, thank you. And I was just dying to ask him all about the filming. He says, were you here when they filmed it? And luckily somebody says, whatever you do, don't ask about it. Just don't say a word, so you'll throw you out. And they says, it was used by Paolo Pasolini the following year. And he made a very dirty film with Robin Asquith in Wells Cathedral. And he says, never again, no one's ever getting a film after that. So he says, do not bring that up.
What was the film? Was it Canterbury Tales?
Yes, Canterbury Tales. That was the one. They filmed
I've seen it, by the way, folks.
Excuse me,
that's right.
But he wasn't very impressed, the guy. So good job I never got a chance to ask him.
See, that would be bad news, would it?
Makes me want to Google and the film, or is it a case of one of those films that I really shouldn't?
Well, I don't think it's that.
Oh, no.
Well, I don't know.
Considered an art house classic
Yeah.
nowadays. you know,
Tom
but-
Baker was in it, I think,
okay.
before he became Doctor Who. He disrobed, I believe.
Oh, well, I'm definitely not watching it then.
He didn't have a scarf either in those days to cover his dignity, so we won't go on about that. But anyway, John, so any final thoughts on Ghosties? So what, any plans for the future? I mean, have we got
So we've just brought that new book out. It came out in February, so that's good. We're throwing our ghost walks together. You know, we're going at summertime. So Leith, that's a popular one. It's good fun. We were doing that one in the Old Town, Portobello from time to time, Wardy Bay on, people request it. So yeah, we're always, most weekends we're doing some in Kerry, who does North Edinburgh Nightmares with me. She's a big part of the organiser for that. But not really that much, we're just kind of like, it's taken all that time to do the book.
Yeah. No,
We have got a very interesting plan for the future, but I don't know how quickly it's going to come about. And like yourself, you're into punk music and stuff, and I used to be in punk bands. I thought, let's compile some stories for punk rockers. So we've started writing this book called Punk Rock Paranormal. And I've been trying to get hold of anyone from bands, promoters, fans, and getting their own take on any personal experiences.
Right.
And I got some good ones so far, but it's kind of, the trail slowed down a little bit. So if anyone's listening to us out there, if you're anything to do with music, punk music or heavy metal, and you got a story, get in touch.
I might have a story for you.
Oh, good. I like the sound of that.
I got one recently, and I've just been given a wee breadcrumb trail, but I've not got to the out of it yet. But the Moorings Bar in Aberdeen, Krakatoa, apparently a few years ago, there's a block of flats upstairs where the bands would stay, and there was a band staying up there that was a Guns N' Roses tribute band who had a very creepy experience, which I've yet to find out what was. And they were managed by this guy. Now, I've got his name, and he was apparently the leader of the Scottish branch of the Order of the Golden Dawn. I've got his name, so I'm going to try, if he's still around, because I don't know anything about the guy, to see if he could sort of illuminate or enlighten me as to what went on there.
Yeah.
But one thing they did discover when they dug up the carpet, because the flats had been done up, was a massive pentagram painted in red, about 5 foot across.
Gee whiz.
One of the main rooms. So whether that's going to do anything, I have no idea. But I will try and pass what I have on to you.
Yeah,
If I can
it'd be
get
great.
more, I would
But
maybe.
that must have a bit of bad juju attached to it, finding that upstairs,
Well, the bar had so many creepy stories anyway, so I guess, the whole block. I mean, I do remember one ex-barman, he moved back to Canada. Or no, he's Scottish, he moved to Canada. He just alluded to the fact that those flats were creepy years ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Have you ever been to places where you've picked up a bad vibe? Like on, maybe not even an investigation, but just when you've been somewhere and you've just thought this place has got...
Trying to think now.
Where? Here?
No.
Help.
Greyfriars.
Oh, right.
Yes.
The Covent there.
That's right.
Yeah, we went there last year, wasn't
That's
it?
right.
And we were with a big group, and there was something in that corner
Oh, right.
by the gates that it was like a brick wall. I could not go anywhere near it. And of course, all of them were all saying, "We're going to have a photo."
Jolly photograph.
I literally could not go there. It was weird. I've had that before.
Yeah.
In other times, but not as strong as what it was that time.
Yeah. Isn't that weird?
Physically could not get there because I thought, no.
Post house in Aberdeen for me, just try to get in the attic.
Okay.
Yeah, weird. Just, I don't know, I was actually quite nervous. I just felt like there was somebody behind the door and it wasn't good. Just wasn't good. And I just touched the door and I thought, it was like it was somebody there. You could almost feel somebody behind it. And then it weirdly just went. But it doesn't happen very often. But like I say, that and that time at the Royal Oak, I would say a handful of times. But disconcerting, would say. But maybe this year, maybe there'll be other places to discover. I know there's, we've made chatted about places in Edinburgh perhaps to check out in the future. So who knows? Who knows? But not that I want anything horrible to happen.
No.
I just want something interesting to happen.
A couple of interesting ones. Not so much with like, an out and out sort of evil vibe, but just something to absolutely change the way you feel. The only thing that's came close to that, for sheer dread, was a pub in the new town. Would you like to hear about it?
Yeah.
If you go down Dundas Street and you come to a pub called the Wally Dug, if you go to the end of that street, there's a tiny wee hole-in-the-wall pub called the Star Bar.
Oh, yeah.
The Star Bar is reputedly, down in the basement, is a skull.
Oh.
Anyone that messes with a skull, you die, plain and simple.
Oh.
And it's documented back to the 40s, lots of tragedy. There was a chap brought it upstairs for the basement, a previous landlord, had it on the bar, hanged himself for the steps.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 70s, there was the guy who had another pub at the end of the street, now the St. Stephen's Bar, it was called Coconut Tams. He had the skull in there for a wee while. He was gunned down in a robbery. There was floods, there was fire, there was all because of the skull. Anyone that moves the skull, you'll perish.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm not taking this lightly. So we were in filming. We did a wee episode about the haunted pubs. And my friend, who was a tour guide from Greyfriars Cemetery, is telling the story. And we said at the end, can we go down and see this thing? And they were very hesitant. They said, do you really want to? And we went downstairs eventually, and I bottled it. I said, I'm not going near this thing. And it's in one of the catacombs. It's like a coal scuttle where they keep their coal. And I said, I'm not going near it. And when we went upstairs, we went in, it was like a Friday afternoon. Everyone was in good spirits, telling stories. I came up and there was this kind of couple of sort of inebriated characters, and they'd been refused service. And they were going around with a bottle like that. I thought, somebody's getting that over their head in a minute. I'm away. Says the mood has changed like that. And it is. I really believe there's something quite sinister about that place. But this skull, it's under a bucket or something. And it's not advisable to mess with.
I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either.
It did. It filled me with dread that day. It really did.
But why? This is the question. Is it the skull's owner, if you like, that's the one that's causing this, or what? But I don't want to tempt fate with things like that. I know people might think I'm being superstitious. I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either.
Just my partner, she doesn't even like me talking about it. She kind of tuts at me when we bring it up. She was in there once and she wouldn't go in. She says, no way. She says, bad vibe in here. I'm not going in the place.
That scary story about the Black Lady of Lark Hall or whatever it is one which I've not talked about, and I found out a little more information about it, but basically it was a woman who was supposed to have been killed by a landowner, and her ghost was meant to haunt this old mansion house which has now been demolished, but some of the stone found itself into the pub. So the stories are that she's seen around and might be very, very bad luck, and people have had accidents. In fact, if you go back to a documentary on YouTube from 1963, when this guy exercises it, and somebody who was filming it ended up getting killed in a car crash, like literally about a week later. And so there's also had this weird vibe about it. And I spoke to a guy recently, he was an investigator, and I won't mention his name, but he's pretty well known. And he said, oh yeah, I had a heap of documentation from it, and which I'll burn when I've passed away, because I don't want people to know about this.
Wow.
Because I had a bad experience, and that's all he said, and I never asked any more because I figured it was very personal.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, these things maybe shouldn't be messed with. I don't know.
I think there are some things that you shouldn't dabble.
Shouldn't dabble. Anyway, on that note, lights on.
Still scared. Right.
Well, thank you, John, for that today, and coming in and sharing stories.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you, John.
It's been a pleasure.
Hopefully we'll do stuff together soon.
Yes, I'm sure we will.
Thank you.
As tonight's episode comes to an end, we want to give a special thank you to our guest John for joining us and sharing their chilling experiences and unforgettable stories. Some encounters may never have an explanation, and tonight's proved just how real the unknown can feel. From eerie moments to terrifying paranormal experiences, their stories remind us that fear doesn't only exist in legends and abandoned places. Sometimes it follows people home. And sometimes those experiences can hit a little too close to home, even for us. Next time on Lights On Still Scared, we'll be discussing haunted homes. The place was meant to bring comfort and safety, yet for some, because the centre of unexplained activities, shadowy encounters and sleepless nights, we'll also be sharing some of our own personal experiences, stories that will stay with us to this day. Until then, keep the lights on and stay scared.
I keep the hallway light on, but the shadows never fade. Every corner whispers secrets of the choices that I made. There's a tapping at the window, though the wind is standing still, and a chill runs down my spine like something moving at its will. I tell myself it's nothing, just the creaking of the floor. But every night the silence feels louder than before. Lights on, still scared. You can't hide from what's already here. Can't run, can't breathe. Something in the dark remembers me. No matter what I do, that feeling doesn't go away. Lights on, still scared. The hauntings never fail. There's a shadow in the doorway where I swear no shadow should be, and it moves just like a memory I'm too afraid to see. Every picture on the wall seems to watch me as I pass, like they're waiting for the moment when my courage doesn't last. I whisper little prayers to keep the nightmares from my bed, but something sits beside me, breathing echoes in my head. Lights on, still scared. You can't hide from what's already here. Can't run, can't breathe. Something in the dark remembers me. No matter what I do, that feeling doesn't go away. Lights on, still scared. The hauntings never fade. Maybe it's just trauma, maybe ghosts are